Madden 26 are some features that will allow you to truly disguise your defense and make it uniquely your own. With this feature, not only can you present a look that is uniquely your own compared to everyone else out there, but it's consistent from coverage to coverage that you call within your favorite defensive formation or formations, so that everything looks uniform and your opponent can't really pick up tells. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, I'm about to show you guys how to discern certain coverages if your opponents aren't taking advantage of those features. So make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit that notification bell, grab out your pen and pad, let's get after it. Now, one of the things that I'm going to do here early in this video is I'm just going to call a traditional no shell feature, no coach setting. I'm just going to kind of go through some coverage looks, and you're going to see that they all have differentiations between them. We'll start off with a Tampa 2. When I call Tampa 2, you're going to see here initially that our corners on the outside are at a 5-yard depth lined up over the outside receivers. And depending on whether you're in a nickel or a dime, a lot of times you're going to have linebackers that are going to be walked out over the slot receivers, especially in this empty set where there's no one in the backfield. And you have basically the vertical hooks in this defense aligned with a drastic shade inside technique on the slot receivers, essentially not allowing them to get a vertical release inside of them. You got to make that throw over the top and outside of those hooks. So that's why this depth looks this way. Now, of course, this is a 2-high defense, so it is fairly easy to discern that this is a Tampa 2, especially when you look at the safeties that are lined up on the numbers. Pretty easy to tell for anyone who's been a Madden head over the years that this is a cover 2 defense. Now, this is a cover 3 defense, a major difference pre-snap from the cover 2, because we go from having 2 safeties over the top to a single high defense. This is what we would call middle of field closed. Another tell to this is that your outside corners are going to align over the top of the outside most receivers, but they're a little bit deeper in depth, basically sitting at about 8 yards off the ball, 7 or 8 yards. In the slots, those players that are being related to in cover 2, where they play an inside technique, you're seeing a little bit more of a head up alignment by our slot defenders that are responsible for a curl to flat zone. This would also look very similar if you were to call it cover 3 match variant, but let's not get too deep with match versus zone at this point in time. So pretty obvious that 2 high versus single high is going to kind of give you an idea of whether or not it's cover 2 or cover 3. But what about the cover 4 defense, whether we're talking about match variety or maybe the zone drop variety like we would see in a play such as cover 4 field drop or drop field? When you take a look at these defenses, you're going to see that in the cover 4, you're going to have the corners a little bit further off the ball than you would see in a cover 3. And the safeties are not standing on the numbers in both cases. You see here that in particular, the safeties are walked down a little bit closer to line of scrimmage than they would be in a Tampa 2. So you see that they're both on the numbers and they're both deeper in a cover 2. In a cover 4, they are walked in a little bit closer, and you basically only have the safety on the numbers on the trip side of a formation if there is one. On a twins look, they're going to be lined up inside of the numbers, basically over that slot receiver. So to a Madden nerd, this is just free. When I break the huddle and I see someone who calls stock coverages, there is never a moment in time where I am confused. I just look at the corners, I get their depths, I look at the safeties to make sure my eyes aren't confusing me. If it coincides with what I know about cover 2, cover 3, and cover 4, I'm well on my way to setting up knowledgeable route combos for you. So obviously tells exists in Madden, and we used to have the baseline feature in older iterations of the game to disguise this. When you would use that feature, it would just put everybody in the same spot no matter what play you called, and it would disguise your intent. You could be in cover 2, cover 3, or cover 4, and it would look the same to your opponent. That's really not the case this year, so we have to maximize our ability to disguise what we want to call. The first way that we could do this is by utilizing the shell feature. The shell feature is one in which in a formation, you just enter the play call menu. Once those plays are up, you can click the right analog stick, or flick it rather, to the left or right until you get a shell that you want. So let's maybe say that I wanted to disguise my cover 2 defense, where those safeties were super far back and on the hashes and the corners were in that 5-yard jam depth. Let's disguise that as a cover 4. So I call that cover 2 defense. Here's the play art to be certain. And you see that it aligns exactly like the cover 4 did, with the safety on the trip side on the numbers, the safety on the twin side just inside the numbers, or basically inside of the slot receiver, the corners back at a 7-yard depth off the ball, and everybody showing that same cover 4 alignment in terms of defending the inside receivers, whether it's the 2 slots on the right or the single slot on the left. Now, again, the big difference in a cover 2 versus a cover 4 is how those hook zone curls play. Remember, in a cover 2 defense, we would traditionally like to see those hook zone curls aligned inside technique on those players to better defend the seam, drop and stay inside, make the quarterback throw the ball up and outside of you. Well, when we play that cover 4 shell, that is going to be a little bit more of a problem because you're going to be playing head up, showing a cover 4 look. So that's going to really allow, if your opponent likes to run those in breaking routes, a lot of times double slants is a popular cover 2 beater, you're going to have that inside break that might not be there for a hike throw that you would have been able to guard if you were playing that inside leverage. So while there are pros to disguising your call, sometimes it will out leverage defenders and make their jobs a little bit harder. But another problem that we're still having in a lot of these looks is the safeties. To me, the seam is the hardest area of the game to defend, so we need to take this a step further. But before we do, make sure you guys open up a tab and head over to my strategy website, gridirongameplans.gg. While I'm doing a lot of content here on the defensive side of the ball early on the YouTube channel this year, you guys are responding quite well to it. I just dropped my first full defensive game plan of the year on the website in the form of our Miami Dolphins defensive game plan. This game plan has not 1, not 2, not 3, but 4 base defensive formations in it, where you guys will be able to also take a look at our match coverage game plan and install those coverages into the pressure looks, whether it's stunts out of the nickel wide or the 2-3 dime, or it's loop pressures out of the 1-4 or the 2-3 will, or other crossfire variants with custom zone adjustments. You guys will be able to run all of these defenses, whether you like 4 down linemen or 3 down linemen, to get stops against all different types of offensive formations that you might face online. On top of that, I have full sets of audibles for those formations available for you, and I have situational defenses, including the best low red zone defense in the game, brought to you by our good friend Medic. This is going to take away the run, the RPO game, the quarterback scramble, whips and zigs, and make your opponent have to truly dot when they get inside the 10-yard line. So make sure you guys go check that out. I also show you guys how to make your man coverage god tier in this game plan. It is one of the best launch projects I've ever done, especially when you factor in the coverage stuff I've already put on the website and done here on the channel. So go check it out. You guys can unlock everything on the website, including our weekly updated vault content, archived lab sessions, and our film study, where I break down my gameplay, what I'm thinking, and how I adjust live on the fly for just $14.95 a month. It is the best deal in the tip space. Go check it out. So the next thing we're going to do here is we are going to add in utilizing safety depth and width. The most common way that players tend to set this setting is to go with close, which is 8 yards off the line of scrimmage. Tight is way too close. Just for the record, you're going to get burned. 8 is fine. And you're going to set your width to pinch. What this is going to do is it's just going to take those safeties, bring them closer to the line of scrimmage, and put them a little bit more inside leverage. So that way you can't just butcher people in the seams. A lot of players, whether they're running empty or bunch or tight or trips tight end, you know that those seams are super tender. So this is going to allow you to basically disguise what your safeties are doing with your shell feature. Let's say that we're facing the bunch tight end and I want to present a different look for my zone coverage than what it truly is. We have those safeties walk down in the seam already, but we want to set our shell to look like it's man under. So now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to call a zone coverage play. In this case, I'll go ahead and call something that doesn't put my slot on the right over on the left because he's the flat defender. Actually, let's go ahead and do that because I want you guys to see the good, bad, and the ugly. So now what we see here is that we've completely changed the look of our defense. Our safeties are still close and pinched, and we look like we're man under. This is the same as what it would look like if I called 2 man under, just with a slight tell right here. But what I've done is I've given this a zone look. So now when we actually take a look at what we're in, you're going to see that this is what the call is. Now, this is why I said you got to be careful sometimes, especially when you do this 2-man thing, because your flat defender might end up being somebody that is across the field on the wrong side, and you'll have to make some adjustments. So what I would typically do with this is maybe just put this player into the curl flat, maybe convert this guy into like a hybrid player who you could man up on somebody. Maybe I put him in the vertical hook here, and then I play the hook that's supposed to be on the right side. There's a lot of things you could do with this, but the most important part of this is that you now have the ability to kind of play this bubble screen a little bit more. And then, you know, if they do decide to call it, you know, there's a chance that you're going to be able to play it a little bit better. So you see right here, like, look at that. We just totally shut that down with this adjustment. So you could utilize shells in addition to safety, width, and depth to really confuse your opponent. Of course, we could also just say, all right, I'm going to put that guy over here in a hard flat and combine that with our, you know, our bubble screen tip as well. So you don't have to play man on him. I mean, you could literally have pretty good defense against the bubble screen with this tip as well. You see how that guy basically played the flat. I had to run the ball. We got to stop more bodies to that side just a cool little feature that you guys can mix in. So what I wanted to do is make sure that you guys understand that you should be using the shell feature in addition to the safety, width, and depth, because there are so many tells underneath that if you just use safety, widths, and depths, I'm going to be able to know. So let's go back to having just the safety depth set and the width set, but not the shell underneath. We'll call that same cover 6 that we opened up the video with against this empty. The safeties are definitely down and pinched, but when you take a look at the way that the cover 6 lines up, you see it right there. That corner's back in press alignment. The other corner's in kind of a 5-yard off the ball alignment. I know that this is cover 6 because your underneath players were not disguised via the shell feature. So safeties aren't the only way to read a coverage, guys. I want you guys to be aware of that. You should be using both of these features. Bare minimum, you can set your safety width and depth and then still hit Y and then use the show feature. You know, I can go ahead and hit Y left to turn it into a cover 2, or Y right to kind of maybe turn it into a cover 3. It starts to get real crazy when you do some of this stuff, so be careful. But you definitely can tell that on the outside, my corners backed up to the depth that they showed when I called the cover 3. So again, that is how this works. I appreciate you guys all coming through. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Until then, this is Zan. Get in the lab and good luck.